Green Noise is back.
A podcast series about nature, biodiversity, conservation, and ecotourism from CapeNature.
We're shooting here, man.
The environment in which we work has changed drastically.
A lot of people would work very hard to meet Patrick Swayze on purpose. You did it by accident.
People cannot be separated with the environment.
Welcome back to Green Noise, a CapeNature podcast production about eco-sustainability, ecotourism, biodiversity, and nature conservation. My name is Dan Corder. We're on the top of a mountain today because we are well in season 3 of the Green Noise podcast. We're on top of a mountain in Hottentots Holland Nature Reserve just outside of Cape Town near Cederberg. It is absolutely wonderful to be here for a special episode with 2 wonderful guests to talk about vertical therapy. Not vertigo therapy. We're not trying to terrify you or put you in a high place and make you feel like you're about to fall off. No, vertical therapy, the idea of how climbing and walking reset the urban mind. I'm sure if you live near an ocean, you've heard the phrase that if you go stand in front of an ocean and stare into the waves for 5 minutes, it's the equivalent of turning an iPhone off and on again and putting it in rice, and you come out of it feeling better than you ever have before. Well, an even more extreme version of that, maybe let's say an iPhone upgrade, is actually going and walking in a beautiful space like CapeNature has so many of. And I'm delighted to welcome the 2 interviewees today who know so much about this. Tony Lorenz is from SA Mountain Magazine and Blue Mountain Adventures, and Louise Matsky is from Nature Connect, and they both know plenty about how good it is for your physical well-being, your mental well-being, and how those 2 intertwine by getting onto a mountain, getting climbing, getting walking, getting hiking, and the rest. Thank you so much to both of you for being here. I should make it clear to the audience that we did not walk here. It was a 40-minute all-road cruiser on a track. I wouldn't even say a donkey track. I think most mules would suffer on that track, but we made it here. Wonderful to be here. Tony, tell me a little bit about SA Mountain Magazine and Blue Mountain Adventures for those who are unfamiliar.
SA Mountain Magazine, I started in 2002. I came back from the UK. I was living in the UK for a while, and I came back, and we didn't have a dedicated climbing mag for South Africa. And I saw quite a lot of stuff going on in Europe and in the States when I was there a bit earlier. And I really thought it would be great for South Africa to have its own dedicated climbing mag. So I went around to some of the brands that were bringing in things, of course, because mags are all reliant on advertising for the income and for the revenue, etc. And they were all really keen for it. So I spoke to a few of my friends who were, climbs and stuff around the world and in South Africa. Were they keen to write stories? And so everybody was keen to get on the bandwagon about the magazine. So I started in 2002, and we started with 4 a year. And I thought I'd increase it to more, but still 4 a year.
You found the right number at the beginning.
Because anything more than that becomes really hard. Then there's no break between the magazines. If you go to like 6 a year, then one comes to an end and you immediately start on the next one. Now at least I have a break. I mean, in 2002 we didn't have digital magazines. It was hardly there at all, and we didn't have like social media like we have now. So it went really well at first, for the first maybe 10 years, and then things started to tail off slightly when online media came, but we still beavered away. We just kept away from news clips, because by the time we put in the magazine, it had been on social media like 6 weeks or 2 months before. So we did stories mainly, and it worked. And then COVID came, and then we went from print to online only. So we printed up until 2020. And then when the pandemic came, some of the big advertisers pulled out because budgets, etc., etc. We all know the story. So my income on the magazine was reduced a lot.
Okay. I see.
So I went online, and it's still going.
And what kind of rock climbing would you cover from 2002? I know that we are all now used to the craze of going to City Rock or doing climbing adventures and stuff, but I imagine from 2002, before the big wave, when there were thousands of people going to Rocklands every single year from around the world, there was also stuff like bouldering and various kinds of scrambling across mountain spaces.
Sure. So we cover all mountain extreme stuff. whether it's climbing in the Alps, alpine climbing on crags, bouldering. We don't write about the German climbing because it's
not a lot of story there.
It's not. There's not a lot of excitement to read about. I mean, if there's an event like a championship, I mean, for 10 years in a row, I ran a rock master competition, which was an indoor competition, which I brought back from Europe. They were having the rock master there, and I thought this would be really great. It's by invitation only, so it's not. So you can't just send your people in to climb. You have to be asked to climb. So I invited only the best girls and boys to climb in the competition, which made it quite exciting for the audience. And that lasted for 10 years, and that we would write things about it, but more like a report story and things like that. But I would cover mainly, if I had a friend going over to the Alps doing something extreme, I'd say to them, don't you want to write a story? Do you have nice pics? But most importantly.
Absolutely.
Because magazines are all about pictures. You pick up a magazine, you look at it, it's the first thing you look at are for nice pictures. So pictures and then nice stories, some short ones, some long ones, some, like anecdotal stuff. And it just kept going. And I write some of the stuff myself. If I do something interesting, then I write about it. And
Super interesting. And tell me about Blue Mountain Adventures separately from that.
So Blue Mountain Adventures is a company I started when I got back from the UK. Also like 98 or so. I got back, I didn't have any work. I decided I didn't know what to do. So I thought, I can. I've always climbed right from when I was a boy at school. So I thought, I'm going to just start guiding and start taking people out and earning money. And that's how the guiding started. And then, of course, it was a bit of a free-for-all. There wasn't any qualifications. You could just guide. And then things came into place. The government put things in place, and they had to go through some courses, some assessments and whatever. And that all happened. And Blue Mountain Adventures, basically, it's a guiding company that takes people all over like South Africa and a bit further afield, like to Kenya. I've even guided overseas, but I've taken groups of people who wanted to go to America, wanted to go to Europe and stuff.
I love the way that you made the distinction there, because you said you've been guiding in Kenya, but also overseas, because I don't know if you've noticed South Africans, if you cross a border, it's overseas. Even if it's Namibia, you just crossed the Orange River. No, I went overseas. No, Lesotho, I went overseas. South Africans are hilarious. Louise, tell me a little bit about Nature Connect and the work that you guys do.
So Nature Connect is turning 25 next year. So it's an NGO that started in Zeekoevlei as the Zeekoevlei Environmental Education Centre. And it was for the sole purpose of reconnecting the youth of the Cape Flats, particularly to the nature reserve that was on their doorstep, which was the False Bay Nature Reserve. It's grown since then, so now we still run our camps, we still do education programs with children. We run a conservation leadership program where we take learners from grade 6 all the way through to matric, and give them all kinds of different nature experiences, give them exposure to different careers and things. And then we were like, okay, now what? When they leave school, then what? So we started we became accredited training providers, and we offer training in the conservation space, different qualifications, different short skills, and then we also have our conservation programs and projects within the city of Cape Town at the moment, but looking to expand that. We also have our Sustainable Schools program, which is looking at sustainability as a whole school project. So as our name says, connecting to nature, that's actually what we're trying to do in all three of our different spaces that we work in, is to try and connect or reconnect people with nature, and we're trying to do that across Africa, but right now we're still very much South African based.
That's amazing. What kind of green spaces beyond Zeekoevlei do you guys take your kids to? So
for our camp program, we use different spaces, but our main camp at the moment is the Bokbai campsite just up on the west coast, where they get to experience both the marine and the terrestrial environment.
Where is that near Bokbai?
It's between Silverswimstrand and Gaansekraal.
Oh, I know.
It's the property basically between the two.
Okay.
So it's a converted old farm that's been changed into a CapeNature stewardship site, and we've set up tents, so it's a little bit of glamping because there is beds in it. They don't sleep on the floor. But for many, that's the first kind of camping experience, or being completely immersed in nature for the whole weekend, or for 2 nights and 3 days, depending on what it is. But we have run camps further afield, and then with our conservation leaders, we've gone everywhere. And then in their graduation, as we call it, they go all the way up to Lapalala in the Waterberg.
That's amazing.
So they get exposure like across the province, and then also into the Cederberg, into De Hoop, so various nature reserves across the province. They also we've taken them to Titsikama, so to Nature's Valley, so they get to see the different environments that we have to offer. And then the biggie is Lapalala Wilderness School.
And are these over holidays, like between terms, or is it during school time, sometimes to weekends and
so
stuff?
The conservation leaders is an extra curriculum thing for most learners, and we do a lot of things on weekends, so day hikes and those starting that like connection through camps at Zekervlei or at Rondevlei. We had a tented site there, and then day hikes into the surrounds around Cape Town. Different experiences, whatever nature-based stuff we can just connect them with. We've done that, and then in school holidays, then we do the big camping trips as we call them. So then they go a bit further out.
Very cool. Okay, let's talk about vertical therapy. Tony, you said you've been climbing since you were a child, and when you came back from the UK in the late 90s, your first 2 thoughts were trail leading people and magazine about climbing. So clearly you've got a deep and long-running bond with and personal connection to nature. But tell me a little bit about the physical and mental well-being, maybe even just the science of vertical therapy that you've experienced through not just your work, but your, I guess, lifestyle and passion for it.
I started at school. We had a little, like a club at school. I was useless at rugby and those mainstream sports. So we thought, like, now what? So I had a friend at school with me in Standard 6, actually, which is grade 8 now, I think, is it? And we thought, what are we going to do? So there was a little club that took kids up. So the one guy at school, his dad he climbed. He was a member of the mountain club. So he would come once every month or 2 months and take the kids up some scrambly route on Table Mountain. We thought, we'll do this. And that was where it all started. So, started at 6. What was I? I was like 13. And then we decided, we wanted to do things a little bit harder. So we started to climb on our own. And we used to go 13, 14 years old, we used to go up Table Mountain just on our own with our packs, go up some scrambly routes, sleep on top. And we just used to find that so fantastic. I mean, it was just wonderful. And basically I've climbed ever since. Once, a little bit of time when I was in the army, I stopped climbing. And I think when girls became a little bit important, like in late teens, I sort of veered a bit. But then I realized climbing was quite a good thing to have when you wanted a girlfriend. You could say, I can take you climbing. And that worked quite well. So then I think, I'm going to go climbing again.
That is literally where all of the jokes about going on a Tinder date in Cape Town come from. The first time a man takes you out, he's like, I'm going to make you sweat so much as we walk across Table Mountain.
So my wife now, so we've been together for 14 years. And the first thing we did was when we started to see each other, we went up the cable car. And we walked across the top and down a very intricate route, which I knew, of course, but she didn't. But exposed a bit of this, and it's a standing joke now that she tells people that I put her through the test to see if she was worthy, which wasn't the case. I just wanted a nice day out with her. We made tea on the mountains and all that. But yeah, I mean, getting out in the hills it's fantastic for the soul, for the I find, I think I speak for most people who climb, is when you are climbing, you don't think of anything else but climbing. When you're on a vertical wall and you're busy climbing an actual piece of rock, it's just that piece of rock that you're thinking about. You're focused on that and nothing else. Never mind the bond you can't pay or whatever, your car's been stolen. Don't think of any of that. It's stress-free up there. Okay, you're a bit stressed about being high up. But if you know what you're doing, it's a controlled fear, it's a controlled risk, and you're having fun while you're being a little bit scared. I think being a little bit scared is all part of it, because it's part of the sort of euphoria that you get afterwards of being scared and then working through that fear And then at the end of the route or the end of the day, you feel, well, I've managed to get through that, and it's a fantastic feeling. And you only know that feeling if you go through it. And I've taken thousands of people climbing, from kids of 4 or 5 to old people. Must be careful when I say old.
Older folks.
Older, yeah.
It's also the physical test, right? It's
is
the
a
fact
physical
of
test.
once you finished it, it's the fact that your body did that. And I guess when you're exerting yourself to try and pull off a climb, like you were talking about not thinking about anything else, but you're also so present and in tune with your body in a way that you're not when you're thinking about everything in the world, and you're in your phone and you're in your car and you're thinking about driving and you're thinking about Instagram posts and you're inside your phone mentally. No, when you're climbing or hiking or whatever, it's just you and your very primal body right there in the moment trying to get you somewhere.
Absolutely. But the hardest thing, or the most important thing, is the mental aspect behind climbing. You can be as strong and as lithe and as nimble as you can, but if you haven't got the head for it, you go nowhere. And you can be not so good. You can be maybe a little bit overweight or heavy or not so easy to pull yourself up a rock, but you've got it in the head, you'll go further.
Interesting.
So a lot of people, if you meet people at a dinner party, they say, "Oh, what do you do for sport?" I say, "I climb." "Oh, you've got to be so strong." I say, "No, you don't have to be strong. You don't have to be strong at all. You just have to have it in the head."
Interesting.
And strength, obviously it helps being
Yeah.
strong, but it's not to start climbing and to experience it. You don't have to be strong. You just have to have a reasonably good head and trust. Well, I mean, if you're with a guide, you must trust the guide to know that what he's doing is safe. But of course, the minute a client gets off the ground, and when they're on the ground, no, that looks fine, I can do this, I can do that, and they get 5 meters off or 3 meters up, and all of a sudden it's like, whoa.
And they freeze.
I'm a little bit higher,
Yeah.
Will this rope actually hold me? So, but the other people that's just, they climb, they fall off, they have the head.
Yeah, for
It
sure.
varies, and you can't tell until you get the person on the wall.
Right.
You cannot tell.
How
Some
they're
people
gonna
are really
handle it.
brave on the ground,
Yeah.
and they're useless on up there.
They talk big on the ground.
Exactly. And so other people are really quiet and they think, "Oh, I'm not sure if I can do this." And next thing they get on the rock and they just shoot up. Yeah, and I've had a husband and wife teams, and it's a bit of an ego thing, and the wife just shoots up there and the husband's up there and he's like, "Oh, I can't do this, and just hold me tight, And the wife is like, "What's your problem?" It's just
That's so funny.
Yeah.
And Louise, tell me a little bit about particularly all of these students going through puberty, feeling a mess about this viral Instagram trend, or whether or not the teacher likes them, or whether or not they're popular in school, whether or not they're the bully or the bullied, and then get ripped out of their home environment, get ripped out of all the stress and anxiety of like their whole lives being school, right? Until at least you matriculate, and then getting out into nature and the incredible good it does for their physical and mental well-being.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things for me, and that's really why I enjoy the work that I do, but that Nature Connect does, is one of the things that always gets me is if we look at the feedback forms from the learners particularly, and they're like, this is the first time I felt safe, and you're just like, what? And that's like hectic.
That's so
and then
profound.
You don't think about things like that when they started, they had this anxiety towards this is going to be like scary. There's going to be all these things and
Wild
the unknown.
and unkempt. Yeah,
yes.
out of control.
And then at the end, they like, oh, wow, I actually felt safe here for the first time. Or it's so nice and quiet. Like, it's things we don't even, I think most of us would take for granted. But that there's the connection, that's the change for me, is right there, is a comment like that. Or yes, we want them to learn more about nature and like understand different things, but the idea that they're just creating that connection of realizing that this is actually a safe space, a space that they can get away from all those things, their day-to-day lives. With our longer term programs, so our learnerships for the out of school youth, but then also the conservation leadership program, we do also try and assist as much as possible with the social side.
Right.
And bring in different aspects for that. But we bring it back to nature every time. So just getting them out into the space really reduces all of that kind of thinking. Even when in the middle of exams, we will just go do a little hike, just take them out somewhere, just so they can breathe for a minute. But I think that's the biggest impact always has been for me, is when they they come back and say, "Oh, this is actually cool in a safe space," and you're like, "Okay, we've done what we've meant to. Nature's done what it's meant to."
Exactly, and then you get space and perspective and all of that good stuff, and just
Yeah.
appreciate the world. I always laugh with my family about how deeply unnatural it is the way that humans live, considering the history of us as a species and evolution.
Absolutely.
So like deeply removed from our natural environs and the way that our bodies have evolved to engage with and gain richness from being outside in nature. My mother
Absolutely.
always says if you want to have a really solid romantic relationship, you need to hike or run with your partner, because the science says elevated heart rate means positive pheromones for safety in connection with people around you, because when we were running from lions 10,000 years ago,
Yeah.
you would find affinity with people who you got away from the lions with safely. So it's just science. You've just got to do it.
I kind of feel like that depends on
who you're running with.
On who you're running with, because I would be the one eaten first. I suspect.
Yeah, that's funny. That's the chat that the surfers always have. The worst thing that you can have on the back line at Surfers Corner when the siren goes off is you look up and you realize that you're the slowest paddler.
Exactly.
But
So I'd be the hider. I'd be the one hiding in the rock, hoping nobody saw me.
Well, they do say when a dog runs towards you, you shouldn't run. Don't
Correct.
panic. So maybe it is the right approach. Let's talk about barriers that still exist for safe access to walking and climbing areas in South Africa. So you, Louise, were talking about for many of the kids and never having actually experienced safe natural spaces, but we know about safety and cost and transportation and skill level and all that when it comes to climbing, Tony. What are these kinds of significant barriers that you think are most affecting for the kinds of people you see and provide services for at Nature Connect, Louise?
It just comes down to pure access, and the biggest thing is the cost of transport.
Okay.
So, I mean, in the area that I'm in, people don't realize that there's hippos right in the middle of the city, as an example, and they've lived in that suburb for years.
Except now and again when one rocks up in Athlone and we don't know why they're there.
Yeah. But, sometimes they just need a wander. But it's that kind of thing that they don't realize they can go is one of the things. So it's changing that perspective, is that historical perspective of like, if it's cordoned off, you can't go in there kind of thinking. It's to change that to go, actually, this is open for all. To sit and stare at the mountains around you, but never having the ability to go there, is what's changing. It's changing that perspective, getting them to see that they can actually go there. So we've seen that with some of our groups that we've worked with, that when we've taken them, they go, oh, actually, I can actually get here. Yes, transport might be a complication, but I actually see I can actually get here, and a lot of it is open and free to use. So then they start. We've had ex-learners on our learnership program starting their own little hiking clubs in the in the communities that they are in, and taking youth into the mountains around the Western Cape, which is really cool. And then we've got another project that supports those kind of small community projects that are starting up, a small grants facility to try and support that kind of work, to expand that. But I think the main thing is still, it's almost like a visual barrier. It's like I can't get there. I can't.
Like an imaginative barrier, because nobody's gone, oh no, you can go there actually.
Yeah.
This is how you do it. It's safe.
Exactly.
This is where you start. This is where you go.
Exactly.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, but transport costs, I think,
Okay.
still a biggie.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And then, Tony, with climbing and with hiking to the climbs and the rest, what are the significant barriers to, I guess, both access and safety when you're doing it, actually?
Yeah, so there's access and there's access. There's access to the place and there's access, are you allowed to go into that place?
Yeah.
That kind of access. That's a big thing for climbing, to be allowed to climb on those walls, and also to be allowed to bolt on those crags, because you get climbing, like trail climbing without the bolts, and you get sport climbing that's with bolts. If you're going climbing, like on Table Mountain, you're not allowed to bolt, which is fine. The climbers don't want to bolt on Table Mountain, and the access is good on Table Mountain. You can go climbing whenever you want, and you can climb whatever you want on Table Mountain. But when you go into places like the Cederberg, it's more controlled. You can climb wherever you want, but you can't bolt wherever you want. There are certain areas in the Cederberg that CapeNature and the Mountain Club, have come to an agreement where you're allowed to bolt. And if you want to bolt there, you have to apply for a permit. So it's quite controlled, and it's a good thing. So we can only bolt in probably two or three areas. And there are some private farms in the Cederberg where if the owner is okay with it, then you can bolt, or you can climb on the van, and that's the same with wherever. So like out in, like Montague, where I live, and it's a big climbing, zone in the Western Cape. You can almost bolt everywhere, except on the private areas. You have to ask the owners, and 99% of the owners are happy with it because they think that the climbers are going to make them rich, and they're wrong.
Don't say that on this podcast.
climbers culture. So the culture of climbing worldwide is like a dirtbag type culture.
Yeah,
they want everything for nothing, and like even the rich climbers want it for nothing. But that is changing, and there are areas in like the Montague areas which are private farms with really good climbing where they have a fee to go in. It's a nominal fee, like 50 Rand or 100 Rand. You can go in for the day and you can climb.
And then safety-wise, are you finding a lot of people who don't have the skill level required to take on something, putting themselves at harm's way?
Not really. I mean, if you go in with friends who know, especially with sport climbing, bolted climbing, it's quite safe if you know a little bit what you're doing. If you don't know what you're doing, you hire a guide. I mean, I get a lot of people from Cape Town and from around the world hiring me to take them climbing in Montague. Even people who have climbed a bit, but it's a new place. They're not really sure where the crags. Can you walk it to the top to put a top rope? No, you can't. You've got to lead. Oh, no, I don't know if I can lead. Can you put the ropes up for us? Yeah, I can do that. So there's a lot of that. Safety. Look, we haven't had any accidents in Montague and thousands of climbers, and we've just opened a new area in the last few years. We've put up more than 100 new routes, and it's become the hot spot in the Western Cape to go climbing in the last year or two. And it's just groups of people coming from Cape Town mainly.
And there are more and more people coming in from around the world. I know in particular that there are more and more people flying in from around the world to go to places like Rocklands, which have become like worldwide known spots. Are there cultural differences between, say, American climbers and South African climbers, European climbers and South African climbers, or is it a fairly uniform dirtbag on your back culture?
I don't know if I'm allowed to say these things on the podcast. It's pretty widespread. The dirtbag culture is around the world. It basically started more in the States back in the 50s and 60s, where they just used to live in at the back of their vans.
It's similar to the surf culture, right? It's like
it's very similar to the surf culture. Yeah, very similar. But yeah, I suppose there are. I mean, the Euros don't have that so much because of the built-up the nature of the continent, whereas the States is a lot of wide open space. There's a lot of wide open space here, but here to just hop in your car, sleep on the side of the roads, of course, it doesn't work so well in South Africa for obvious reasons. You've got to be careful where you can't just pull off the side of the road anywhere and just sleep in your car, because that might be your last sleep. But in America, it's still a going thing. And I mean, I've written stories and articles on dirt bagging and just getting in your van and just doing like a 6-week trip around South Africa. I mean, South Africa is fantastic for road tripping, for climbing.
For sure.
So many fantastic areas in South Africa, especially the Western Cape. I mean, the Cederberg, I've climbed a lot around the world. Not everywhere, obviously, but I've climbed a lot in Europe, in the States, in the East, in Scandinavia, and sort of Kenya, Namibia, etc., whatever. And people ask me, where's your favorite place? And I tell you, it's right here at Cederberg. You cannot beat the Cederberg. And I'm not just saying that because I'm on a CapeNature podcast. It's genuine. Cederberg has got just about everything an outdoor person wants.
Yeah, for sure.
Even got a bit of like luxury. It's got the nice restaurant there. It's got the wine. It's got the beer. It's got nice places to camp, the chalets, the rivers, the cycling, the hiking, and it's got world-class climbing.
Yeah, for sure.
Absolutely world-class. Tafelberg, Wolfberg, Krakatoa. Those are all, you can't get better than that. You just cannot.
Cool. And since we've been speaking so much about vertical therapy, I'd love to end with a story from each of you about one really transformational example of a person who was really deeply enriched by a new and fresh encounter with nature through all of the thousands of people who you've guided and helped over the years.
there's been a few cases of it. The one example that I gave already, but I think it's that there's been a few learners that have now gone and done their own thing, and now they transforming their communities to go and to expose them to nature. I think for most youth, they spend a lot of time inside for safety reasons, and then the reason to not go on walks and things like that is also for safety reasons.
Yeah.
Changing that perspective is really important. I think for me is giving those learners that exposure, and it's regardless of what their ability is.
Yes.
So if they are the fastest, the leanest, the whatever, or if they the tortoise at the back like me, who's just watching the lizards jump from rock to rock, that's like really important. Enjoying the space, playing in a waterfall, all of those kind of things that we could, in my youth at least, I could go and easily do in a stream or whatever. But I think for me, the youth that we've worked with that are now running their own programs because of their walk in nature, and that's transformed them and connected them with something that they did in their youth. I think all of this starts in childhood. That exposure to a natural area, and it's really important for urbanized children specifically. But that connection is like I remember doing this at home, or I remember doing this in a park or whatever, and I actually want my kids to experience that, or the kids in my communities, to get them out of that unsafe environments that they're in daily, and then take them into those communities. And to me, that's like been the most enriching experiences, is watching our guys coming from grade 6 and doing in their matric year, doing something with their communities. To me, is really cool.
That's superb.
Yeah.
And Tony?
Generally, I find that with kids mainly, especially kids that are slightly challenged at school, like ADHD, and they don't do well at like mainstream sports. I get their mums and dads coming to me and saying, "Oh, can we come through to Montague? Little Johnny or Susan wants to try climbing, or we'd like to do a family thing, climbing." And it's amazing to see how children like that, I mean all kids, but I'm talking about those in particular that are slightly like challenged at school, open up, they flourish, and they think, here's something I actually like doing, and I can actually do it. And it's not a team sport. You don't have to rely on anybody else. You don't have to get someone shouting at you to tell you how useless you are because you can't catch a ball. They're there, and you start them on easy stuff, and they get to the top, and this euphoria that you can see that and it's just incredible to watch that. And then afterwards, like a few days later, then I get a text from the mother and say, little Susan or Johnny, they really enjoy that. They thanks so much for blah, 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 all that. And we'd like to come back in a couple of weeks' time, and can you take us on something else? So it's really opened up something that child can enjoy. But for that time, they are finding something really useful to do.
Totally.
Yeah.
I want to add on to that, if that's okay. Just that change of perspective, I think, is also really important. And the simple view of them standing on here and looking back and going, "Oh, is that where my house is? Is that where?" Like, then they can see everything.
Yeah.
And it's just like that difference is now I'm at the top of this mountain, looking back and like where I stay. It gives them a sense of place and a sense of pride.
Absolutely. Well, both of you, thank you so much for what you've said and the work that you do, Tony and Louise. What a fascinating conversation. And now I'm going to tell a joke that I don't know if it'll make the cut, that I've been sitting on for 35 minutes, and I'm going to tell it. And if you don't hear the joke now, it's because CapeNature decided that that's not appropriate. But I'm going to tell the joke now. And if this is the last you hear from me, goodbye. And now if they leave the joke in, the joke is, well, you've heard all of this incredible inspirational stuff. And so the lasting message about vertical therapy is, go get high.